Welcome back, this is part 2 of Les Claypool's amplifier and effects rig. Les's amplifier rig is a little bit of a mystery. Whilst he endorsed both Mesa Boogie and Ampeg over the years, it seemed he was never satisfied with the rig, swapping between amplifiers and cabinets more than any other bass player we've covered on this channel. So stay with me and hopefully it will all make sense. If it starts to get a little bit complicated, check out the show notes down below for a full list of everything mentioned in this video. The earliest we see of Les Claypool's amplifier rig is a single 15-inch cabinet with an 8-inch woofer, made by Electro Voice. This was used in the live sessions for the KZSU radio sessions in Stanford, California in 1989. The head on top of this bass cab is believed to be an SWR 400S, which Les owned around this period. About a year later, following the success of Suck on This, Les is photographed at a show at the Haight-Ashbury Street Fair. On stage is a Mesa Boogie 400 Plus and two 15-inch Boogie speakers. Also in his rack is an ADA MP1 preamp with the MC1 controller. This configuration would become the core of Les Claypool's sound, as he always seems to return to it sooner or later. In June 1991, whilst touring Sailing the Seas of Cheese, we see a slight change to the rig, with Les now sporting an Ampeg 8x10 cabinet with a SVT, whilst he was seen with the Ampeg gear. A month later, in an interview taken from Guitar Player magazine in August 1991, Les mentions that he uses a Mesa Boogie rig and mentions nothing of the Ampeg. This is also reflected in the debut music video Joey Was a Race Car Driver, as we see his core Boogie rig. Come 1992 and the experimentation is in full swing. Primus were touring early that year, and shows from this period give us the introduction of a 4x10 SWR cab with a Boogie 15 underneath. Primus then performed on a few TV slots, notably for MTV Spring Break and the Dennis Miller Show later that year. On stage at this time was a Gallien Krueger 800RB head, and now two SWR 410 cabs. Mentioned in an interview at this time, Les stated, "My sound has all this weird shit in the high end. You can hear it through 10s, but not 15s. In the music video DMV, we now see the Mesa Boogie rig back on stage, but this time Les has two 215 cabinets. Les now also appeared with a second ADA preamp, which he declared as a backup, and above this is an ADA stereo tap delay. Primus, again moving into the mainstream, appeared on an MTV Halloween special in 1993. This time Les has two Mesa Boogie PH1000s. A year later they were dropped in favour of the core rig, returning in Woodstock 1994. Moving into the height of Primus's cultural peak came Tales from the Punchbowl, with the first video being Winona's Big Brown Beaver. Whilst not being Les's main amplifier, if you ever wondered what the amplifier being used in this video was, you'll find it to be an Ampeg Portaflex. The Punchbowl era sees Primus appearing on primetime television programs, with performances on Conan O'Brien and the David Letterman Show in 1995. Here you would typically see a pair of MP2s, the wireless unit, the ADA delay, and either one or two 15-inch cabs. In promotion of the Brown album, Primus made a second appearance on Conan again in 1997. Les appears with the same gear just mentioned. Speaking of the Brown album, interestingly enough, it was recorded using a 12-inch solid-state Gallien Krueger practice amplifier. The reason being, Les mentions that it's easier to get tones out of smaller, quieter amps. In 1998, Primus released their home video, Videoplasty, to complement the band's recently released EP named Rhinoplasty. In footage from this video, a PH1000 returns and is seen offstage. It's around the same time on a German TV special, we see Les try out a set of Ampeg 4x10s and some SVT3s. Whilst they aren't used on the next Primus record, we will return to them in a little bit. According to Les in an interview at the time, the following album, Antipop, was recorded solely using an MP2 directly into the console, with no mic'd up cabinets. Primus then toured Antipop at Ozzfest of the same year, and it's here we have one of the clearest pictures of Les's rig at the time. It's actually daylight and we can see everything. back of the PH1000s on either side with a funky leather casing, and two 215 cabinets underneath. As well as a firm and power supply, a wireless receiver, two ADA MP2s, a DBX160 for compression, and three Ampeg SVT3 Pros, which Les has been known to endorse at this time. Seen at a show that October 1999, it would seem that Les tries different Ampeg equipment again. He has two 8x10 cabinets and two new SVT heads. In the year 2000, it became clear that Les finally settled into his endorsement with Ampeg. At the offshore festival, he was seen with literally a stack of Ampeg equipment, with two 8x10 cabinets and two Ampeg MTI SVTs. If you're not familiar with these, you'll find the cosmetic changes were brought about during the mid-1980s. This is due to Ampeg being bought out by Japanese firm MTI, Music Technology Inc. Therefore, this is known as the Ampeg MTI era. Above the SVTs are what looks like two Gallien Krueger 800 RBs, but I have no idea why they would possibly be there. If you do, leave me a comment down below. Primus went on hiatus in the year 2000, and Les created the supergroup Oysterhead, already covered in part 1. For this group, a new rig was used, 4 Ampeg PR410s and 2 new Ampeg PR215s. At this point in time, the ADA preamps and the delay have been completely removed from Les's rig. He now relies on effects to do the same job. This rig was powered by two SVT2 Pros, and you'll also notice a Korgworks tuner in his rack, and a DBX160 rack-mounted compressor. Throughout Oysterhead, he keeps the cabinets the same, but you'll find he cycles through different amplifiers. He's seen throughout this period using an original SVT, SVT2s, 3s, 4s, and 5s, with no apparent reason for changing so often. Listed on the Ampeg website in 2013, we see Les officially endorse the SVT3 and the 4. This modern rig was used throughout the mid-2000s, and was also used in further side projects such as Colonel Claypool's Fearless Flying Frog Brigade, Bucket of Bernie Brains, and Primus in 2003, again swapping out the heads as he saw fit. There are some deviations in 2006, with some of the Ampeg 8x10s being reintroduced. These cabs were used on and off right up until the year 2015. To make things even more confusing, he never settled with the 4x10 cabs. Sometimes he went back to the single ported cab, and even then he tried the newest SVT Neo cabs that came out at the same time. But backtracking a little bit. By 2007, a new iteration of his rig had emerged. It primarily consisted of two API 7600 input modules. Having spoken highly about his experiences using an API console, it's clear he wanted to recreate this on stage, as well as a new power amp, eventually resting on a Mackie FRS 2800. The equipment here was kept the same up until 2015, and that brings us to the current Claypool amplifier rig, seen in the Claypool Lenham Delirium and recent Primus shows 2018. Les returns to his former glory with a Mesa Boogie endorsement, using Subway D800 heads and up to 4 Subway ultralight 12-inch cabinets. Moving on to effects, Les has said he's not really a gearhead. You would think that would make it easy. We touched on the ADA preamps earlier in the video, but for the early part of the Primus catalogue, you'll find the MP1 and the MP2 responsible for much of Les's sound. The ADA MP1 guitar preamplifier is a MIDI-controlled rack-mounted effects unit featuring overdrive, chorus, and EQ functionality. Les mentions in a 1992 interview that a friend at ADA modified the EQ so the lows pass through better, and also the compressor to provide more bottom end. Les continues, he only uses about 9 sounds on it just to cut the treble, cut bass, or add a little crunch. There's one program for each instrument in the memory, with different level settings to compensate for each bass's output. Les often paired the MP1 with an MC1 MIDI controller, and later upgraded this to a controller made by Digital Music. The MP2 replaced the MP1 in 1995, adding more functionality but essentially performing identically. In TV appearances from this period all the way to 1998, we see Les using a MIDI controller in some form or another, For the recording of Antipop, there's the MP2, like I said, but also a short list of gear sprinkled on top of the production. A rack-mounted Lexicon multi-effects unit, which served as both a preamp and a delay where applicable. There was also an MXR phase shifter, some usage of Larry Lalonde's vintage Mutron, and an envelope filter on the AX300B multi-effects pedal, made by Korg. On several songs, Les used an Access Virus synth, not only for bass parts such as the Antipop intro, he also triggered the synth with a set of MIDI controlled pedals, like on the electric ambience throughout The Final Voyage of the Liquid Sky. On stage with Oysterhead from the year 2000, the foundations of Les's pedalboards were finally starting to take shape. The ADA preamps left his rack, and some well-known pedals were laid in place. The main layout of this pedalboard is in 3 panels, and essentially boils down to a MIDI section, distortion, and then modulation. These boards are split up using various AB and ABY switches, which can give access to one board at a time, or make combinations of everything in between. This board evolved over the years with equipment coming and going, so we'll keep it simple. Head to the show notes if you'd like a complete list of the signal chain and everything Les has been known to use. On the MIDI board starting far right, there's a Roland PK5 dynamic MIDI pedal, and above that is usually the Access Virus. More recent photos show the addition of a Boss VE vocal performer and a small monitor control made by Avid. The distortion board at one point had a Boss tuner and a red Line 6 amplifier modeler, which was eventually replaced by the gold-coloured distortion modeler. At the foot of the board was a Korg AX300B multi-effects pedal. Again, more recently, this was upgraded to the AX8. Finishing with modulation, there's a Line 6 delay modeler, the AirTurn Bluetooth pedal, which allows you to wirelessly control page turning on an iPad and mostly seen during the Claypool Lennon Delirium. Then finally, an original boomerang phrase sampler. Les was in admiration of Trey's boomerang and decided he wanted one too, stating the original version has a lo-fi quality. By 2017, we finally get some answers from Les Claypool's bass tech Ryan Becker, who finally provides some clarity. He states, Claypool's basses feed a Shure wireless system. After a switcher, his signal encounters a distortion modeler, a delay modeler, and a first generation boomerang phrase sampler. These go in the effects loop of a Fractal Audio Systems AX8 amplifier modeler and multi-effects. The tech also commented on the recording of Desaturating 7, stating, Claypool's signal chain was even simpler, just his old MXR 10-band graphic EQ and an MXR M80 bass DI, which also provided distortion. Regarding pickups, there isn't a whole lot to mention. Les has been endorsed by and used EMG pickups since all the way back in 1989 on his very first main bass, Carl Thompson. Primarily, he's always used EMG humbuckers on every bass, even the resonators. He's still endorsed by them today and uses the following models. Moving into strings, Les done the smart thing and tried out a bunch of different brands over the years to find out what suited him. The earliest source of what strings Les used were first seen in an interview in 1992, which stated, Les uses Dean Markley nickel round wounds. But then the article uncovers a fascinating little tidbit. Instead of using the typical string gauge 40 through to 100, Les' set consists of 2 A strings and 2 G strings, taking influence from Tony Levin to make his chords sound better. The same practice was confirmed again in a 1995 interview, where Les asked Carl Thompson to put outlandishly light strings on his newest fretted Carl Thompson. The upper strings are usually unwound, like you'd find on a guitar, so they're easy to bend and almost sound like a Strat, or so Les says. By 2006, Les changes from the Dean Markley nickels to the blue steel strings. And then from 2011 right up to current day, you'll find Les using Jim Dunlop custom strings. While there's no information about what gauge Les is using, it's more than likely a similar gauge to the 45s to 100 he's used in the past 15 years. And there you go, ladies and gents, that is the Les Claypool amplifier and effects rig. As always, take a look at the show notes linked down below to find a full list of gear and everything not mentioned in today's video. Please be sure to subscribe and click the bell icon down below so you don't miss out on the next video. Speaking of which, what do you say we do Lemmy? Lemmy Kilmister from Motorhead. That'd be a fun video. But if Lemmy and Motorhead aren't your thing, don't worry. You tell me who you'd like to see in a future show in the comments down below. Many of you have told me, several times in fact, who you'd like to see. And don't worry, I haven't forgotten. The list continues to grow and I hope I get to your choice as soon as I can. Thank you very much for watching and I'll see you in the next Know Your Bass Player.